and that is some kind of spiritual transformation. There are amazing ministries across the United States that go into prisons and really want to see that change. And when that happens, when you say, yes, I want to change, anything can happen.
Sure. That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles. Welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, best-selling author and former mayor of Grover Beach in Central California, Debbie Peterson. Also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 30, count them, 30 global audio video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, Spotify. Oh, there's way too many to list. So, in fact, we are proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of thousands, #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. From prison to possibilities, reform begins on the inside. Dr. Kim Nugent is a 9-time best-selling author, certified coach, and expert mentor with deep commitment to prison reform. Through her work, she empowers individuals to unlock their full potential, proving that true transformation begins within. But before we get started, let me take this moment and thank my last week's guest. Sheila Donnell has enjoyed a successful career spanning over 55 years across 5 industries and is now embarking on her 6th as an author of an upcoming book. You're fired. You're hired. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews, including this one, on caregiverdave.com or any of our other 30 global audio video platforms that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Kim, it is so great to have you on. Or do you rather me say Dr. Kim?
You can say Kim.
Okay. Well, I always like to ask my guests just who is Kim Nugent? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And why was she placed on this earth?
Well, I would just say that I have always been raised to help other people. And whatever that looked like, I'm the oldest of 6, so that came pretty naturally in the very beginning.
Mother hen.
Absolutely. But I was one of the lucky ones, quite frankly. When I was young, I knew what I wanted to do, or knew more particularly what I didn't want to do, which led me to what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to work in the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And so I did that for about 25 years. And so really it all started from being in service to others. And I've been able to parlay that into a lot of different industries at this point in my life. I've been really lucky to have worked in higher education and certainly healthcare and owning my own business, and now really an author to be able to make a difference in people's lives.
Great. And you talk about prison reform. Where did this prison passion come from? I assume you weren't serving some hard time, were you?
No, but I do say on the first page of my book, by the grace of God, I'm not in prison. And I say that because, wrong place, wrong time, wrong decision really could happen to anybody. And I don't think that we really think about that very often, but that's part of it. But basically, there was a fellow author, and he was working in Arizona doing volunteer work, doing meditation work, and was seeing what a transformation it was making in people's lives. Whether you're in prison or not, I would think meditation would be incredibly helpful, even especially to caregivers, quite frankly. And so he's asked me if I had ever seen a book written about mentorship, and I hadn't. And so he said, would I be willing to write it? And I said yes. And then after I said yes, hung up the phone, thought, what did I just say yes to? Because I don't write about things I don't know about. I only write about things I know about. So I went on this 5-year journey of really being able to understand what it would be like to be in prison, and then what I needed to know in order to write my first word.
Wow, great partnership. Debbie, you got any questions for our wonderful guest today?
Well, yeah. So was that your first book? Is that how you got started writing, or what made you, how did that happen?
Well, actually, if you really want to know the truth, I said I would never write a book. And you know what happens when you say never to anything? That's
bad choice.
Exactly. But I was a teacher. And so I always thought about, I couldn't sit still long enough to write a book. I could talk about it, but I wasn't going to write. But one day at church, our minister had written a book, his first book, and he brought the gentleman he had written the book under, I guess you would say, or his tutelage to our church. The gentleman was from Sedona, Arizona, but he came to Houston, Texas. And he came during the sermon just to kind of really talk about the process. And so he offered a 2.5-hour workshop after church. And I didn't have anything to do, quite frankly. And that was really my bad attitude, if you want to know the truth about it. But I thought, well, I'll just go waste 2.5 hours. So I went in, and who came out of that building was very different. I knew I was writing a book. I knew the title of the book. I knew what it was going to be about. I signed up for his retreat, and now I'm 9 books in.
Wow.
God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
Even through our rudeness or whatever.
Exactly. My definite no was turned into something unbelievable.
So just curious, what church do you go to? What Christian background? Assume it was a Christian background that you had when you were growing up?
I was raised Catholic.
Okay, me too. And we survived.
Well, the story before that is that actually my dad was going to be a priest.
Really?
And he was 6 years in the seminary and was going into that last year to be ordained and became ill.
Wow.
So they sent him home, and always said that we were his little practice church. Every Wednesday night and every Saturday to confession and every Sunday to church and Catholic, Catholicism classes. And we went to Catholic school. So I was raised Catholic. I am not a Catholic, but I definitely attend non-denominational churches.
So your father was a frustrated wannabe priest, and you were the congregation.
Exactly. And then he turned that frustration into something else, and actually at the age of 30 and 6 kids decided to go back to law school.
Oh, wow.
And took him he had a degree in theology and it decided to become an attorney. He became a criminal attorney. It took him 10 years. I don't even know how he did what he did, but he practiced law for about 30 plus years. And what I learned from that experience has never left me, which is he believed no matter what the evidence said, he believed that everyone was innocent until proven guilty. I mean, to the day that he died, he believed that.
That's a novel concept today, isn't it?
It is a novel concept. But he imparted that. I mean, he demonstrated that life to us as kids. But, so it's sort of how I see the world is that, all things are possible. And my brother, he wanted one of us to be an attorney, quite frankly, but none of us did. My brother became a police officer, which was interesting dinner conversations. And
tough to be a police officer during COVID, wasn't it?
Well, my brother did pass away a number of years ago, so he didn't live through COVID.
Well,
but
thank God for that.
And no, definitely didn't have to go through that.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. But my first year in college, I needed a job, and my dad, at that time, it wasn't against the law to do this. You can't do that anymore. It's against the law, or it's a conflict of interest. He had a bail bonding company. He was in partnership, and so I worked 11 at night till 7 o'clock in the morning. So, jails or prison was not a foreign concept to me. Having conversations around crime and sentencing was not a foreign concept to me.
Well, if he was anything like Dog the Bounty Hunter, I'm sure that was a very colorful life that you had experienced, at least seeing in the periphery what was going on. Some of the characters he was dealing with,
100%. They really like to see you at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're getting them out. They're not so great.
Did he go out looking for people who messed up their bond, or he didn't go that far?
No.
All right.
He personally did not. Now, he did have someone, in fact, one of the persons that I worked with in the middle of the night.
So he would call Dog.
He would call, yes, exactly. And we did have one person where someone had to be called because they didn't show up for their court date.
Debbie.
Well, I'm curious. So what are you doing right now? What's your current work? You said you were an author, but it sounds like there's more than that.
I'm the director of talent and organizational development for a healthcare company. I also have my own business, but currently related to my book, the book is turned into an actual training program. It's a curriculum. It's 6 to 9 months, and I do train-the-trainer programs directly with incarcerated men in maximum security prisons in Florida, Texas, and Mississippi.
Good for you. Some people just don't want to have their hands soiled with all of that stuff, but kudos to you.
Thank you. It's very rewarding work.
Yes. So have you done anything that might surprise us, our audience of burned out caregivers?
Well, I've had some time to think about it before today, honestly. And I think that whether you're incarcerated or not, some of us are incarcerated in our in prison in our own minds, right?
Absolutely.
And I was thinking about what is that? And I think what it is, not to take away, and I so respect caregivers because it is the hardest job in the entire world there is. And what happens, I think, sometimes is you think you don't have options or you don't take care of yourself. You're trying to help somebody that what happens is mentally and physically, you are just exhausted. Yeah. And so I think really thinking about what could I do for myself, respite, is that meditation? Maybe you cannot leave, the house. You have to be there. But is there someone else in the family, or is there an organization where you can just get a break for a few hours to be able to step away and then be able to come back and be your best so that you can give your best, because it's hard work. And many times by the person that you're taking care of, they may not appreciate, I'll say it that way, appreciate everything that you're doing to be able to be there for them and to do the things that have to be done, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of caregivers consider themselves to be in caregiver prison with no possibility of parole, and they didn't sign up for this, and they would rather not be it. But you talk about attitude in prison. I mean, the Bible talks about having a good attitude when you're sent to prison. I mean, the Apostle Paul was in prison for years, and Joseph, the brother of the 12 tribes of Israel. He was thrown into prison unjustly, and he had a great attitude, and he just kept being, having favor with God until he was finally number 2 man in all of Egypt, and he actually saved his entire family. And then I think of Chuck Colson, the Christian writer who was the hatchet man for Richard Nixon, and he found God in prison and turned his whole life around, prison ministry. And I'm just wondering what. I lost my thought.
Where you're going with that is how does your mindset affect your thoughts and feelings if you're in whatever kind of a prison you're in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that if we really kind of dissect that for just a minute, the first thing for all of us, regardless of our circumstance, we have a thought in our head, and then we have feelings attached to it. And then from those feelings, we take actions and we get the results that we have. We may like the results, we may not like the results. Right, exactly. But you're so right. I think that, I'm not really great with quotes in particular, but I think about, for people, for example, since we're talking about kind of religion or spirituality, when you think about tithing, for example, so you can give it out of obligation, right? Or you can give it with an open heart. And it's sort of the same thing being a caregiver. Like I can go, oh my gosh, this is how my life is going to be. Or I can go, oh my gosh, I can spend time with this person. I can learn something. I have a good friend who, her dad became ill, and so she was the primary caregiver. Even though her mom was still alive, her mom wasn't in a position to be able to take care of her husband or my friend's dad. And what she did so many remarkable things with him. And one of the things is he did live an extraordinary life, and he still could speak. So she recorded stories so that she could create a book about his really extraordinary life. But even if you only did that for your family, even if it wasn't getting published, but you were able to, today with the tools we have, you could go to Word and have dictate it, and all of a sudden you've got a book for yourself, be able to share those things that would live on years after years after years.
Yeah. And, bringing the Bible up again, the Bible talks about motives are more important than what you do. Doing the right thing for the wrong motives doesn't please God. And conversely, you would think that, doing the wrong things for the right motives, would at least say, oh, well, his heart's in the right place and eventually he'll get it together. So that's very important. Yes. Debbie, you got anything?
Yeah, what about mentors? You've mentioned mentorship a couple of times. Why is that so important?
Oh my goodness, for so many reasons. But I only write about things I know about, right? So I was a very lucky young girl. And at 16, my boss at the time became my mentor for the next 16 years until she passed away. Amazing. And at being 16, I needed to know so much more than about work. I was a young girl who really hadn't figured it out yet. And so she helped me personally and professionally. Then I went on into higher education, and I needed a different kind of mentor because my career had changed, right? And so I had another woman who became my mentor. So I know firsthand what a difference it can make. But what the research says specifically in prisons is when you have a mentorship program, it can reduce recidivism up to 40%. But I even think about, even in the caregivers world, sometimes just having a friend that's going through the same thing, just to be able to just mentally release some of that and talk about or how you're feeling, or those things are really important. Somebody who has shared experiences can be that mentor, and it has nothing to do with age today. That person doesn't have to be older. There's peer mentorship, there's there's generational mentorship, where sometimes we can learn from younger people things we've never even considered before. So, I mean, really, anyone could be a potential mentor depending on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
I love how you said a program of mentorship or a system of mentorship, because I think for caregivers especially, if they can establish for themselves a program, a system that they will then follow, that will help them with their recidivism of going back to feeling like they're in prison.
Absolutely.
And what about, haven't you done some caregiving? What's your personal experience of caregiving?
Well, I'm going to say it's varied, but it's not to the degree that most people. So I really, again, I want to come back from a place of respect, because I am not doing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not. However, I was married to a man who, actually, my first book is called Did I Say Never? and that book was really about, I said I was never going to get married, and I said I was never going to marry a man who had kids. And of course, what did I do? I did both. And his oldest at the time was 6 years old, and he was a special needs young boy, and through a variety of things. And so I never thought I was going to be the mom, but I became the stepmom for sure. And together, my husband and I together, I was always about finding the quality of life for him. I wanted it to be safe. I wanted him to be healthy. I didn't think that he was going to be, some parents think their kid's going to be the president of the United States. I didn't think any of those things. I just wanted him safe and healthy, and I didn't know what that looked like. So he's blind. He's mentally retarded. He he doesn't walk. He wears diapers. He doesn't speak.
How old is he now?
At the time he was 6, he's 45 now. And
he is out of diapers?
No.
Okay.
No. But what I will say is that on this journey, he's in a safe place. Good. He's in a group home. He's in a safe place, number one. Number two, he knows my husband and myself. We weren't sure of that in the early days. He knows about 10 words. I can sign to him, but I can also say those words. He knows that. He knows what yes and no are. He knows when you only need about 10 words, quite frankly, in your vocabulary to be able to manage life. And he's happy. That's the other thing we found through me trying lots of things. I always pretend like, and this is not hard for me to pretend to do, I know nothing about this. That's exactly right. I know nothing about this. And nothing is a good place to start from. Because if we come at like I'm the expert, you stop listening to people. You stop getting curious. You stop learning. And when Brooks was 6, and I was trying to kind of help along the way. Basically, we didn't have the internet in those days. I just want to remind you about how long that was. And so I would literally sit in a bookstore on the floor trying to read and find any resource at all that I could. And I was able to do those things, and that was really good. But the reason I wrote that book was babies, even as great as medical science is today, and we've made a lot of progress, babies still come home and they're not perfect. And I thought, if I can help one family, then it was worth it. But it helped us more than we even knew it was going to help us when I wrote that book. And the great thing is that, again, he's in a safe environment. He's doing amazingly well. And, and the tough things that people don't think about, he was able to, through a lot of work, he now can walk sighted guide, which means he's holding on to me and, we're walking together. He can get in and out of a car. He can get in and out of the bathtub. I'm holding on to him, but I'm not doing deadlifts, which in the beginning it was deadlifts. But through a lot of work and finding a lot of experts around the world, literally, for me to learn about what I needed to do to be a good stepmother has really helped a lot.
I'm sure Debbie will agree with me, but Kim, how can you even suggest that you weren't a full-time 24/7 caregiver for what you've accomplished, even if it wasn't literally 24/7? You have paid your dues and done the extra work to make up for the 24/7. You have lived a life of caregiving, and you have a lot to show for it because you've got a normal functioning human being out there. Good job. I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of him. I tell you what, I have learned more from him than he ever learned from me, for sure.
Well, I hope he's proud of you too.
Well, we learned a lot of things. Certainly one thing that we learned, we knew early on that he liked music, but we just couldn't quite get there. But I found a group started in France and then Arizona and then ultimately Dallas. But it was called the Tomatis Technique. And through that, us taking him and him going through that, and then we brought the program back to Houston where he could continue to go through that. We found that he loves classical music. Mm-hmm. Wow. And it's so relaxing because there's a definite difference depending on the kind of music that you're playing. It does affect all of us, right?
So he's never heard of that when he realized that he liked classical music. That was the first time he ever heard it.
I would think yes. Certainly we played other kinds of music. I'm in Texas, so probably country, western, and some other thing. And he would definitely have the energy around that. Except that that's not really the way to be able to make a difference. There's a whole technique that with the Tomatis method, and I don't want to mess up their story, but basically, I think it was back in the 40s in France that Alfred Tomatis, his parents were they were opera singers. And they were training people to come in. The people would come in and they would practice in the home. And the son heard this and he found it really curious. How come some people got to a point in their career and couldn't go past it? Yeah. And so he became an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And what he found was that people couldn't really hear that particular pitch or that tone. Yeah. And so he thought, I wonder what that would do. So he did a lot of brain research to be able to find out how to stimulate some of those neurons in the brain. Mm-hmm. And kind of if you and I were to listen to the classical music, it would be classical music, but the way I describe it, they'd probably hate the way I describe it. It almost sounds like maybe a little bit like the record players kind of scratched a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like there's definitely something different. And that's what's really causing things to happen. And when that starts to happen, really great things happen. So, since we're on the subject for just a minute, I'll say one thing. So, Kim is always having these great ideas. Oh, let's try this. Let's just see if if it'll work. And, my husband's like, and, sure, you just go right ahead. But I thought this would be really great for us to go to Dallas and, I'm in Houston, let's drive to Dallas and take Brooks with us. And so we did. And they said, hey, we can't promise anything, but, we'll try. It's not going to hurt him. So we did that. And, it's 2.5 hours a day that he was listening to music, and this went on for like 3 weeks, and then we brought him back, and so 6 months later, like anything happened? Nope, nothing happened. Okay, so then we do it again. I'm like, we got to do it again. So we do it again, and it was Thanksgiving. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was Thanksgiving, and we were visiting his grandparents. And in the middle of the night, Brooks could make a sound, and he needed to be changed. And so I said to my husband, hey, will you get up with me? I didn't need him to get up with me. I don't even to this day know why I said that. He goes, okay. So he gets up with me, and we go in the other room, and I'm changing his diaper. And when I finished, Brooks said, thank you.
Wow.
It was. And both of us couldn't say anything. We couldn't go back to bed. It was like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Because I had said to him a couple months before, to my husband, he said one time, my husband was out hunting. I said, he said, Mama. He goes, no, you just want to hear that. And I said, no, he said it. And he didn't say.
He was nonverbal all those years, huh?
Yeah. And that was like till the age of 21.
So now he's verbal.
So now I'm like, do you know what that means? Like 2 words. That's a couple of, that means there's thinking going on. Yes. It's like so exciting. It was like really
Fonts. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. Pretty exciting.
We're running out of time. Obviously, your book should promote self-care, which is very important in caregivers, right? You got to put your occupation on first. So last question, what did you want to convey to your readers, and what do you want them to get out of this book, and how do you want it to help them?
Yeah, there's an opportunity, I think, for everybody listening to either take care of themselves first and foremost, because it's like being on a plane, right? Don't pull down the oxygen. You've got to pull that down first before the person you're traveling with. So you got to take care of yourself. And most caregivers are number 2 or 10 on the list. So let's kind of go back and say, maybe leave them with the question of if there's anything you could be doing right now that you would really want to do, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be something great, but just, 5 minutes to have coffee by yourself, or bringing a friend over and talking, something that could be daily, something to remind yourself that you matter as a caregiver, even if you're not getting the appreciation that you want. But really, that's it, I think. And if you got that down, then, and you're not a caregiver, there's somebody else to take care of. Maybe not to the degree of 24/7, but volunteer someplace with where your passion is, and you're going to get so much out of that.
So how can our listeners reach you if they want to learn more about you or get your book?
Simply go to my website, which is www.drnugentspeaks.com.
And Debbie, how can people learn all the wonderful things you do in the political arena?
You can get my books at Amazon under the Integrity 101 series, Debbie Peterson, and you can find me at mayordebbie.com.
Yes, integrity is important in politics. And my number 1 best-selling book, It's Your Life Too, How to Survive and Thrive as a Caregiver, is available wherever books are sold. Also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can also schedule a 30-minute free initial coaching call to talk about whatever you're struggling with. And you can also join my community of 34,000 caregivers on Facebook at Caregiver Dave. And we have lots of tools, resources, videos, this radio show, and much, much more. And if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're on right now, helps Google reach even more caregivers. So again, a big thank you to all my listeners out there. Thank you to you guys, and thank you for those who continue to tune in every week, making us the number 1 caregiver podcast on the internet. So until next week, same time, same channel, may God richly bless you all. Thanks again, guys. I'm Dave Nasani. My 4th book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is a number 1 bestseller on Amazon. As a young boy, I was told I possessed an unusual amount of wisdom for my age. As a young man, I found myself counseling friends and older family members whenever they needed answers to their problems. Then at 21, I read the Bible for the very first time and learned how King Solomon asked God for wisdom instead of riches, yet he received both. I was so impressed that I too asked God for wisdom. Soon after, I discovered when lying on my hammock, I would receive wisdom from God. This book is the result of my passion to share with the world wisdom's tremendous benefits. Join me as I reveal practical aspects of wisdom for the mind, body, and spirit. 31 lessons I learned from God that can change your life. Available in hardcover, Audible, Kindle, and paperback, wherever books are sold. I've spoken all over the country and London, and am available to speak at your event. Contact me at hammockwisdom.com.